This is actually my second attempt at doing this because what happened was when I first got up, I looked at what I looked at. It's now 4:20 in the morning. Yeah, I got up and started about 45 minutes ago, and again, I forgot to turn on my mixer, among other things, and so this is all this is all live, uncut, and the I can't even, I mean, to say that I'm stunned at just how this electorate went in the direction that it went. I've never seen anything like this. Never seen anything like this. And there are a couple of things that I thought about as I got up and freshened up to put together this next installment, post-election installment. I've mentioned in the past that I worked at a car lot. I worked at actually two car lots, really three, but two that I count. And every now and then you'd have a customer who would come back the next day and try to get out of the deal that was papered. And I don't recall ever having someone be able to back out of a deal that was papered and it was actually approved by the banks. Once it was financed, that was it. Now I had recalled some vehicles having to come back because the deals didn't go through. They papered out the people, meaning that um, the person was able to drive off the lot with the vehicle, but there was a 50-50 chance that they would have to come back and sign new papers. And there was a chance that they would have to just bring the vehicle back. But never I saw someone who had buyer's remorse and was able to get out that vehicle. At least maybe that's what happens in South Carolina because there are the extent of the lemon laws in South Carolina um, pretty much imply that once you take the vehicle off the lot, it's yours unless otherwise. But just take my word for that. And that's what I'm thinking right now. The joke with the car lot is that car salespeople or car people in general rank down there with politicians, attorneys, and media folk. And I would say that the car folk probably rank a bit lower because the people who actually make it a career working as car salesperson are probably some of the biggest pathological liars that you would ever know. Some of them do come across somewhat credible, but by and large, for them to last that long, many of them are pathological liars and will knock their own parents' head to the not even the next state line, but the state line after that. And with the results that I'm seeing, at least the first news source that I looked at were the projected electoral college map is now looking 286 to 226, and with this, and with actually winning the majority of the electoral votes, I'm seeing where Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Nevada, the very states that Kamala Harris needed to win to get the two, well, three of the states definitely needed to get to 270. Um, it's this is this is just beyond description. Um, it's beyond description, and I can think back to only one example of myself having to try to um, do an autopsy on things, and that was 2019 when I came back after hip replacement surgery, bowling wise. And I mean, it, I was bowling bad, just really bad. Even though I was able to go through the motions of bowling, I just wasn't bowling well enough. And I kept leaving a lot of the same. It's like it was almost, you can almost count on it. Somewhere's around the first, in that, when it hit that first transition, it was trouble for me. There were certain shots that I would leave, and there were certain shots that I wasn't effective at making, and it was frustrating. And what I did was I went back through all the leaves, the leaves that I had. In other words, if there was a shot that if I failed to strike, I charted all those pins that I left. And it dawned upon me that there were a couple of things that either, I was either, the ball was either breaking too late. Most times it was breaking too late, which meant that I was struggling with ball speed, number one. And number two, I was not using the, it's obvious that I was using the wrong bowling ball. And I started making small steps of progress, and then I had an issue with my shoulder. And then once I kind of got past the immediate danger with my shoulder, um, in early 2020, I kind of surprised myself and kind of put it together for during one tournament and cashed for the first time. And um, then the shutdowns occurred. And so for me, basically, it took almost 2 years for me to get back, make it back from bowling. But at the beginning of 2021, I started making the shots that I needed to make. I wasn't striking, but I wasn't leaving the shots that I was leaving in 2019. And I saw a noted improvement throughout 2021, but I haven't picked up a ball since 2021. Just suffice it to say, although that may seem like a bit of a rambling, the fact of the matter is that I did not begin to make um, progress until I charted up those shots and realized, okay, this is what's causing these shots, or this is what's causing me to leave these pins on a consistent basis. This is the reason why I was not handling that first transition or that second transition as I should have, or as I was able to do prior to hip replacement surgery. I'm going back to the theme about you just bought a lemon. This country has just bought a lemon. And unfortunately, though, this lemon is going to take, I really believe that this lemon is going to take you down a path that you don't want to go. And it's going to have far reaching effects. And the unfortunate thing is that this country looked so short sighted. It only looked for itself and not around. And that's the problem. I know that this country really is really is taking on the personality of the person that it just elected. And maybe this is the personality that was always in a lot of people. And it finally resonated with a majority. And that's the scary thing. It finally resonated with a majority. And when you've got a majority, it's now you against them. In this case, it's me against them, us against y'all. And there's a majority of you. Man, some very uncertain times. Just for just for I guess my own clarity's sake, I downloaded that administrative and policy playbook of theirs, Project 2025. That may be the only reference book that you'll ever have, because with Project 2025, one of their goals is to get rid of the Department of Education. They talked they talked about it was talked about before the election or leading up to the election about how books are being banned and how certain history is not being told or being whitewashed. Look out. There's going to be more of that. But maybe you don't care about that. I know from the education realm, my daughter's in was that was part of her master's studies and was going to be a part of her doctoral studies about the education system. But at the college and university level, there are people who are now looking for a fast exit from the higher education realm because that's the area that's going to be, people feel fear is going to be attacked first, the colleges and universities, since there's already a high percentage of the population that does not have college education. I mean, this country has never really had that, but I mean, what's one of the things that was said during the election was that the low propensity voter, the one who doesn't have the college degree, who doesn't really, they're just trying to get to the next day, who's not really tuned into what's going on. If you can play upon a person's ignorance, you got them. And bottom line, knowledge is power. And what they bought was not knowledge. And it sure as hell did not empower them. And that's a scary thing. It's not just them. There's the inner tendencies of people to ingratiate themselves with someone who's caught up in themselves. For the life of me, I can't, I just can't, I cannot fathom that. I cannot fathom that. I've never gone around. I'm an Eagle Scout. I never went around with my American flag and singing patriotic music and all. But I understood, despite my liberal leanings and all, that while this country has its issues, it had always been in its institutions better than pretty much any country out there. Well, you're going to find out just how bad this country really is, having bought the lie. You're going to find out how bad the world is around you since you bought this lie. You got someone in their first time around that could not stand up to Vladimir Putin. You got someone who first time around pretty much um, spoke highly of Xi in China and never said anything that set a line of demarcation. You had someone who spoke highly of the leader in Hungary. You had someone who spoke favorably of the leader who was in Brazil, who was a Brazilian version of him. People of Brazil voted him out. Who knows? That guy may try to come back. Bolsonaro. Then there's the guy in North Korea, that nut. But the far-reaching effects are like this. China, this election may give China the green light to try to invade Taiwan and may go as far as trying to invade the Philippines. definitely is going to give Russia the green light with Ukraine. And one of the warnings about Ukraine was after Ukraine comes Poland. The Iron Curtain may be reconstituted when it's all said and done. There's far-reaching effects. You talk about what all you care about is what affects your pocketbook. But this world is so interrelated now through communication. You can't run off in a corner like you did 40 years ago. The isolationism does not make sense because of the interdependency of the world. What are some of the other implications? There's talk of some guy who doesn't believe in vaccines and doesn't believe in fluoride in water running the Department of Health and the Department of Health and Human Services. I think that's what it'd be in South Carolina. So this person would be, if there's another pandemic, there's over 1 million people that died during the last pandemic. There's no telling what was going to happen if there's another pandemic. If 1 million people died in the United States 4 years ago, it may be 5 million people that die. And then what? But that's the car that you bought. That's the car that you chose. That's the car that you elected. That's the car that you elected. Again, I'm at a loss for words, man. It's 047, so I've been up for about an hour. And when I last posted, it was 5 hours ago. So that means that I didn't even sleep 3 hours good. Can't sleep, man. I mean, I'm really concerned. I'm really concerned. I know that I'm going to buy a passport for my daughter. I'm concerned for my daughter, especially with abortion pretty much. I mean, there's no telling how far this thing with abortion is going to go now. There's no telling. There's no telling how far it's going to go. My daughter may need to move to another country just to be able to live a life and not worry about whether she may get the health care that she needs in certain situations. I tell you this much, this election, the results of this election has, I feel as if that I have aged 10 years. I'm Social Security eligible next year. There may not be Social Security now for me. I'm about to re-enroll for Obamacare. I'm going through the motions, but it may not be there for me next year, even though like the last time around, there was talk of trying to get rid of Obamacare, and it was one vote away from being taken away. One vote away. That vote does not exist now. That vote does not exist. That one vote of resistance does not exist because as many as 55 Republicans would be in the Senate. In the House, it may tip to anywhere between 225 and 230 seats. So you've got in place basically a rubber stamp for whatever whims that those of you who participated in the election and veered in that direction, that is what you want. One thing that I want to think about, one thing I want to mention, and I mean, it's come back to me. It's come back to me even clearer now. I met someone 6 years ago, going on 7 years ago. And then earlier this year, I saw her online and I'm like, I met that person. She moved from South Carolina to Ecuador. And the person whom I saw then or met then, who was somewhat reserved, she feels as if she's had a new lease on life when she expatriated from the United States to Ecuador. Those are my thoughts now. Where do I go from here? Where do I go from here? Because I may I um that's one reason why I'm going to get my passport. I just don't see the United States as a viable future for myself. I don't see it as a viable future for my daughter. Um, and I know that I'm not the only one who feels this way after the repudiation, the mass repudiation of what these election results tell me.